In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to stitch the Dandelion kit from our Botanicals range. So, what's in the kit? First up, you have an instruction booklet. This instruction booklet includes detailed pictures of the dandelion for you to be able to reference. And then on the reverse, it's got detailed instructions for each colour plan of each stitch area. So for example, you'll see this one shows all the different areas that should be stitched in satin stitch, in blanket stitch, in turkey work, or in fly stitch. This design uses lots of different stitches, but don't be intimidated. They're all nice and fun to do. Now in this little book, you've got written instructions for each stitch. You've got a guide on how to get started, how to split down the threads, and you're going to stitch this entire design with 3 strands. Then you've got methods for satin stitch, fly stitch, blanket stitch, and turkey work. Those are the 4 stitches. You'll notice the book has quite a few other stitches as well, and that's because they're used in other parts of the Botanicals. Now in this kit, as the first of our Year of Flowers kits, you also have in it a little Botanicals collector's gallery with a sticker so you can start collecting which of the different designs you've done. You have a hoop that you're going to use for all your sewing, your design screen printed on fabric, and you'll have 2 needles in the corner of your fabric here, a large eye and a small eye. We include both because some people have different preferences for which needle they want to use. And then you also will have your bobbins all numbered up. Now you'll have a few more bobbins than this, but you'll see these are numbered up 1, 2, 3 and 4. And these numbers match the numbers from the design plan. So for example, number 4 is number 4 here. Number 2, the same here. So you can use this design plan and colour by numbers. So let's get stuck into the stitching. So first up, before you begin, you want to put your design onto the embroidery hoop. I'm going to start us on this flower up at the top corner. So let's begin in the simplest area, which is the satin stitch. And you'll notice on this satin stitch, we work in a horizontal direction across the leaves with a little gap running down the middle of them. And we're also using satin stitch for all the stems as well. So to begin, I'm going to get my needle and I'm going to separate my strands of thread. Now we have a separate video that shows how to do the separating of the thread, but in case you want to see that here or you haven't done it before, you basically cut an arm's length of thread and then we're going to split that down and use 3 strands. You pull 1 strand out at a time. If you try to pull more than 1, then inevitably you'll get into a knot. So I've got my 3 strands there. With the remaining 3 strands, wind them back onto your bobbin. So I'm going to thread my needle and tie a knot. So to do our satin stitch, I always find it easiest just to start in the middle of a shape. So I pull my fabric nice and tight. I'm going to bring my needle up and I'm going to take it back down to the other side of the fabric. So again, working in a satin stitch method, and there is a separate video showing how to do a satin stitch, but all I do is I bring my needle up on one side, down to the other, and I'm working all the way towards this central line always. Now often people struggle with satin stitch, and if you find that you get little gaps or you find it hard to keep it neat, then one thing to bear in mind is that you can always go back and stitch in any gaps after. So I really recommend just keeping going, stitching the whole thing, and then if you find you've got some gaps at the end, go back in after and you can fill those in. Never unpick. There's so much you can solve just by stitching over the top of it. So I'm just going to keep going now down to the end of the leaf, and then I'll show you coming back the other way to give you an idea. So I'm down to the end of the shape, and now I'm going to come back to the other side. Rather than starting at this very kind of small little tip, I find it much easier just to go to a bigger area and then work backwards. So I'm going to bring my needle up on the outer edge and go down in towards the middle. Now the key thing with all our botanicals is to make sure as you stitch you cover any of the white lines. The white lines are permanent ink and therefore you can't remove them later. So you want to make sure you stitch from beyond the white line. And that's as simple as filling the leaves is. Now just to show you, when you do get onto the stem, you're going to work in exactly the same way, but you're just going to do a side to side satin stitch. So again, you just see, we're just filling in the whole area. And this is the largest bit of stitching you're going to do on the piece. So that's how you'll do it. Now, when you finish your strand of thread, all you need to do is turn over on the back. It's when you get to around about 5 centimetres left, and you just run your thread underneath the stitches you have there on the back. Something like that. That will secure it in place. So that's your satin stitch. Now I'm going to show you how to do the fly stitch sections here. And you'll see in your stitch plan, the fly stitch section here, we're going to use colour number 4. So I get number 4, and again, I'm going to cut myself my arm's length of thread, and I separate out 3 strands. Thread your needle up, and tie a knot. So for fly stitch, it's a really simple stitch. All you do is you bring your needle up at the end of the Y, take it across to the other side of the Y, and then before you've gone the whole way through, bring your needle up at this point in the middle. You then take your needle down to the end. And that's your fly stitch. So simple. Now you don't need to worry about trailing your threads across the back of the piece because you're using such dark fabric that actually you won't see any of the trailing threads on the back. Bring my needle up in the middle. You see I pulled a bit too tight there, but I can just loosen this back up again. And then I go down. And likewise, same on this side. So that is it. Now when you finish your fly stitch areas, you're just going to want to secure them under. Now when you've done it, you'll have a lot more stitching on the back because you'll have your satin stitch all done. I don't have much here, so I'm just going to drag it over to these areas here. I'm going to wrap it around a couple of times to make sure it's all secure. So whilst I've got colour number 4, let me move my hoop. I'm going to show you how to do the turkey work. Now turkey work, when you do it, will feel very messy, but don't worry, it all comes out well in the end. So we're going to be doing our turkey work on here, and this is what turkey work looks like. It's these long, loose stitches, just like this. So when you're doing turkey work, the key thing is you want to get lots of volume. So rather than working with 3 strands, whilst that will work, you're best to actually work with more strands of thread. So in this case, I'm going to work with 6 strands of thread. So I'm going to get the other 3 that I had before and join them up with the remaining amount I had now. So I've got 6 strands. Now do make sure when you do this, you separate all your strands of thread. Because I have 6 strands of thread, I'm going to thread up my larger needle. I'll struggle to get 6 strands through my little needle. So I thread up my needle, 6 strands of thread, and tie a knot. Now we have a separate video showing you the entire turkey work process, but I'm going to show you it here again. The one thing to bear in mind is we're doing turkey work on this section here, but as you'll see here, we have a satin stitch section just below it. I'd recommend stitching the satin stitch section here, as well as this satin stitch section down here first. Stitch them before you do your turkey work. It's just an easier way of doing it, but because I'm doing this for the video. I'm just going to show you the turkey work now so you can see it clearly. Basically, I bring my needle up and I take it across in a little securing stitch, like that. I then bring my needle up in the middle of there. I come across a little bit further. Don't worry, there's no preciseness in here because we're just going to fill out the space. Till I take a loop to roughly the length I think I'm going to want to cut to. So you see I've got a loop there, and then I make a securing stitch over the end of that. So you see it's going across the end of that loop. I then bring my needle up in the middle of that one, and I'm going to do a similar thing. So I'm going to get my needle across a different area, make a loop roughly that length, make a securing stitch across the end, and then bring my needle back up through the middle. Going to go again. Oh, don't worry if you accidentally pull it too tight. Just grab your needle and bring it back up again. Hold it with your fingers, and don't worry if these loops are all different because we're going to end up trimming it down anyway. Take across. Little securing stitch, and then I bring my needle back up in the middle. Again, loop across. Bring it across here, back up through the middle. Come across. Go over the end of that stitch and come back up through the middle. And now I've got to this point, I'm actually going to bring all my loops to one side, and I'm going to go and do another row behind. So create a loop there, and I'm going to come back across. Now really don't worry about the preciseness at this point, because what you just want to do is just get as many stitches in as possible. We're just trying to create volume. So bring across my needle, back up through the middle of it. I come across. So you see, got my needle there. Make a securing stitch across the end of that. And come up to the middle. Now I'm running out of thread here, so I'm going to just secure this by just stitching again through that. On the back, I'm going to run the needle under some of these. And I'm just going to now repeat this process again, just with another length, same sort of length, just to build a bit more volume in. So I'll pause the video and come back to it once I've got that all filled in. So I've now done all my turkey work, and you can see I've probably got about 12 loops or something here. So I've got a reasonable amount. Now, what I don't have here is some good sewing scissors. So you do want good sewing scissors for this. But all I'm going to do now is go through and just cut through all the loops. Because of those securing stitches you've done, all your threads are actually now secured in place. So even though this feels very risky, they're not going to fall out. And this is why you want lots of volume. So you see at the end, then I've got all these loose threads, everything cut through. So all I'm going to do now is just trim it. Like I'm giving it a little haircut. And remember, we're trying to recreate the dandelion, so you want it to feel quite long and quite loose. So there you go. That's your turkey work at the end. That's the end of your dandelion. So for the final basket weave section, the little flower here, you can see this is made up of 2 rows of basket weave, all working into the centre. So it works in this manner, where you have the darker colour as your outer edge and then the lighter one for your inner. Now you want to do the outer edge first. So going to take another arm's length of thread, and this time we're back to working with 3 strands. So I thread up my needle, tie a knot. Now I'm going to work from the end edge here. And then I'm going to go down to the centre. And it's a bit like the approach of a fly stitch, where I don't pull my thread the whole way through. Instead, I take myself along the line and I catch that thread. So again, I'm going to go down to the centre, go alongside where my last stitch was. Bring my needle along the outer edge and I catch it. And I catch. I'm going to fill the entire outer edge of this darker colour first, and then I'm going to go back in and do one in the inner edge in the lighter yellow. So join it up right at the end. Now I'm going to take my needle at the end, just take it back through, little securing stitch, and then secure it on the back. I have my needle threaded up with my paler yellow, and now I'm just going to go in and repeat the process, but on the smaller circle. Now here you're going to see that I'm going down the middle just to add a little element of separation. So I take my cross to the gap of the other two, and I'm going to bring my needle up in the middle here. And then I'm going through the gap on the other two and up through the middle. So I'm repeating the exact same process, just adding in this second colour. And that's it. I keep going, working in that manner until I've done the inner edge and the outer edge. And then once I've finished, I just fill a little tiny bit in the middle with a satin stitch. The only remaining section on the design is just a stitch over the letters, which you're just going to do in a back stitch. And you can refer to the separate video on how to do that, but you're doing that in the nice bright yellow. So that's the entire dandelion design. You're going to learn loads of new stitches doing it and different ways of working. I really hope you enjoy it.